922, 76 in the capital city. Shifting our attention on AM Baton Rouge, the subject of losing weight, maintaining a healthy weight. Bill and I, both being radio people for many years, no strangers to doing weight loss programs and endorsing them. I've done 3 in my time, 3 different programs. No need to name them, but the one thing that they all had in common was you eat more than 3 squares a day.
Yeah, you eat
on
more
one,
frequent meals.
I was told to eat 3 squares and eat 2 smalls in between. So that's a total of 5, 3 decent-sized meals, and then 2 little bitty snacky-type meals.
Well, here's the thing. There is a study that has been written about in the lay press, as it were, the non-scientific press. I saw it in the LA Times that says it's official. Americans' 24/7 culture of work, entertainment, and digital connectivity now extends to our dietary consumption patterns. Our erratic, round-the-clock eating patterns have contributed to an epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes. In other words, we need longer fasts between meals to help us in our weight loss. Well, do we? We don't have the expertise, but Dr. Courtney Peterson does. She is with the Pennington Biomedical Research Center, and she is also doing the timed eating and grazing studies. I love the idea of a grazing study. Dr. Peterson, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. So just before we get into the bits and pieces here, do we need a little longer fast between eating to keep up with weight loss and proper nutrition in this country?
And how long?
Yeah, so studies have shown that it looks like we do need a longer fasting period. So the average American is eating over about 12 hours a day, and this study in the LA Times showed that people are eating even up to 15 hours a day, but it looks actually like eating in a smaller window each day helps lower your blood sugar and keep your hunger under control.
All right, so what are we talking about for most people? What would you like to see when you study to see if it's effective in terms of the length of the window?
So we're not really certain exactly how small of an eating window you should be eating in, but we definitely want people to start eating in under at least 12 hours a day. And the reason why is because eating late at night has been shown to mess up your metabolism and your body's internal clock. So in particular, when you're eating within a smaller time period every day, we want you to shift that earlier in the day so you avoid this late night eating, which we also know impairs your body's ability to burn fat.
So let's say you're on the average you turn in at around 10 or 10:30 at night. Stop the eating by 7?
Yeah, great question. So it depends on what you eat, but on average it takes about 3 to 5 hours to digest your food for each meal that you eat. So we want you to finish digesting your food before you go to bed. So for example, if you go to bed at 10 at night, we want you to have your last meal no later than 5 to 7 p.m. every day, and not to make that like a huge meal right before you go to bed. And the reason for that is, if you're digesting when you go to sleep, your blood sugar levels are elevated, which impairs your body's ability to repair itself. But we know sleep's really important. It's a very critical rejuvenation period each night, so we want to make sure that you're done digesting before you get some shut-eye.
So we're tying your diet with your sleep cycle, and it all starts to go hand in glove. We had a neurologist who studies sleep on with us about 3 or 4 weeks ago saying you need more and you need to not be reading before you go to bed. You need not to be eating heavily before you go to bed. And we, of course, thought he meant like a half an hour. But you're saying, no, 4 to 5 hours.
Yes, about 3 to 5 hours. If you're eating like a high carbohydrate meal, then it'll digest faster, a little closer to 3 hours. But if you're eating a high protein or high fat meal, it's going to take up to 5. So you really need to, have quite a bit of a buffer before you go to sleep.
Now, that creates a problem, I think, for some people, because there are people that if it's been 4 hours, they're starting to get hungry again. What do they do? Do they drink some water to stave that off while they sleep, or what?
Yeah, so there are a couple things you can do. So you can drink more water. The other thing, too, is if you eat more of your food earlier in the day, there's some evidence that suggests you'll be less hungry. So, for example, if you wait all day and then you have, and you haven't eaten much, and then you get to dinner time and you have a huge meal, you're going to be much hungrier. and it takes a little longer for your hunger to go down at night. So you really want to try to eat as much of your food earlier in the day as possible, and that should help with controlling your hunger later in the day.
Dr. Peterson, real quickly, I am told that you have 2 meal timing studies going on, the timed eating and the grazing studies, which I alluded to earlier. When are you going to have some results from these that we can say, hey, yeah, you do need to cut it off at this particular point?
Right. So the grazing study is looking at is comparing eating early in the day versus spreading your meals throughout the day, like in grazing. Mm-hmm. And for that study, we're looking at how the time that you eat each day affects how many calories you burn. And that study will probably have results from in early, maybe January or February of 2016. And the other study, we're looking at how the time of day that you eat affects your blood sugar control. And for that study, we will probably have results in the spring of 2016. And for that study, we're in particular trying to see if by shifting the timing of your meals, we can take people who have prediabetes and actually improve their blood sugar control. So we're really excited to see whether these meal timing strategies can actually reduce your disease risk.
Well, speaking as a middle-aged man who is trying to maintain weight and even lose some, this is fascinating for me. So I'm going to want to learn more about your studies as you get. We'd love to have you back on the program.
Great. I'd love to be back on the program. And if any of your listeners are interested in participating in the study, we're still recruiting participants, and they can go to www.pbrc.edu/healthierla.
Dr. Courtney Peterson, thanks for joining us this morning. Got news coming up for you next at Talk 107.3.
We give you the top stories all day. We feature conversation about those stories. Thanks for listening. This is Talk 107.3, WBRP, Baton Rouge's local talk and information leader.